the greatest freedom is freedom from freedom. Because the greatest freedom is, I'm not going to indulge in all sorts of silliness. I'm not going to indulge in every whim. I must ground myself now and do what needs to be done. Hi, today I want to talk about the topic of freedom from freedom. What does it mean and how can you use it to lead a better and happier life? Freedom, of course, is a concept that we all want. We all want to be free. Nobody wants to be a prisoner. Nobody wants to be a slave. Everybody wants to be doing what they like doing. We have concepts like free time, free education, escapism, escaping the 9 to 5, the 4-hour working week, all forms of freedom. And yet, we're not free. Actually, what's interesting, if we compare ourselves now to say 100 years ago, we all have a lot more free time, but we don't seem to have any freedom. So what exactly is this about? What can we do about it? The basic thing that we have to realize about the nature of freedom is that the major thing about humans, the major gift of humanity that we have, is the ability to perceive consciously, to be an active participant in our life. We are a stream of conscious awareness, and we can be actively involved in the world around us. So, for example, a cow in the field or a horse in the field, they can have a pleasant experience and they will enjoy it. They'll have an unpleasant experience and they'll not enjoy it. But afterwards, they seem to forget about it. It's good sometimes if they have an injury, for example, they won't think about it much, but also they can't reflect upon it. They can't think back of, I remember when I was a young cow, I remember when I was a young horse, I remember when I was a young dog. They're always in the now because they don't have this conscious awareness, which is, I'd even say, going beyond the concept of rationality. Rationality, of course, is there. We have a rational reasoning mind. But more importantly, we have this conscious self-awareness. Now, that's a wonderful thing, but we have to think about what does it give us? What the conscious awareness gives us is the ability to observe, enjoy or not enjoy something, reflect upon it, and then make decisions. So really, what we perceive as freedom is the freedom to make any decision that we want. And we look at the world today and we see so many people who are strung out on drugs, for example. So many people who are addicted to so many different things. They have tremendous freedom, but they seem to be squandering their freedom in all sorts of inanities that's not helping them. The world is in chaos and in a mess. Why? Because we're misusing our freedom. Now, we often look at humanity and say compare humanity to animals and vegetables and all this. Vegetables and so on have no freedom at all. Animals have some freedom, but no higher level thinking or an ability to appreciate whatever they're doing. And humans have a lot of freedom, but we seem to be destroying this world. You look at the entire universe, it's very, very big, it's huge. And yet, for all the size of the universe, you got this tiny marble. We don't know if there's other life forms out there, there probably is, but life is certainly rare or distant because look how big the universe is, how far we've looked at our probes and our telescopes into the universe. And yet we see this tiny marble of life. And look at the world, it's such a beautiful place. There's so much beauty in the world. And yet we don't seem to be able to appreciate the beauty of the world. Why not? Because we have too much freedom. What do I mean by that? I'm not saying you should get rid of your freedom. I'm 100% pro-freedom. But what I'm saying is we are indulging our freedom. The greatest thing you have is your conscious self-awareness. The second greatest thing you have, created by conscious self-awareness, is that you have a will to power. You can choose to do certain things. Okay? And you have a thing called desire. And desire gets a bad rap because people think, oh, it's desire. But desire is the energy that promotes you into doing things, into having passion. You cannot have passion without desire. You cannot be passionate without desire. You cannot be compassionate without desire. Okay? So, desire is useful, but we don't know what to say yes to, and we don't know what to say no to. We have no control over ourselves. We're out of bounds, and we're all over the place, and we're stressed out, we're not happy. And why is this? This is the case because we are a prisoner to to our freedom, or rather we say we are a prisoner to our apparent freedom. Our apparent freedom is that we seem to have freedom to do all sorts of things, but we tend to select the wrong things more often than we select the right things. So what's actually happening here is that we have to realize that that freedom, that gift of conscious awareness, and the freedom which it gives, the greatest freedom is freedom from freedom. Because the greatest freedom is, I'm not going to indulge in all sorts of silliness. I'm not going to indulge in every whim. I must ground myself now and do what needs to be done. That is the greatest freedom. The greatest freedom is freedom from freedom. So how can freedom from freedom make us more free? Freedom from freedom can make us more free because we move away from our lower mind and our lower level thinking, and we shift more to the higher mind and the higher level thinking. Now there's a bit of a principle here. I don't go into religion in this channel, although sometimes I slightly touch on the subject of spirituality. But basically we have to think in terms of there is some greater purpose of life here on the earth. There is some greater purpose of this planet and of us being here on this planet. And so there is a guiding principle. You can call it God consciousness, awareness. There is a design, there is a plan. And so what we have to do is shift from the smaller us to the bigger us. And the question is, how can I shift from the smaller to the bigger? So let's just imagine for a minute, and this is speculation on my part, but let's just imagine for a minute that we have a God. And God gives us total freedom. And God will never stop us, no matter how negative we do, what terrible things we do, God will always give us freedom. This loving God who wants to give total freedom because he wants us to grow and develop and appreciate God as a conscious decision. You see, that we're choosing to appreciate. He'll never say don't do this or don't do that. He won't even tell you do this and do that. But what we can do is tune into that higher level. Because you got two things. The lower level is pulling you one way. The higher level is pulling you another way. So we have to ground ourselves a bit and realize that every time the lower level pulls us, it kind of aggressively grabs us. Eat that chocolate. Take that drink. Punch that person out. Whatever it is. That in the moment thinking. So, but the higher self is we have to go up because it's a higher level. We have to go up in our conscious awareness. So the best way to contact the higher self is to ground yourself in the now. So by grounding yourself in the now, you can start asking that question within you, in your heart. Who am I? What am I? And we can stretch it out further and say, God, higher power, whoever you are, what next? What do you want me to do now? So in other words, we surrender ourselves to this higher self. Now, it's a wild speculation where we're surrendering ourselves to God, or just surrendering ourselves to a higher transpersonal version of ourselves. Nobody knows for sure, but it seems to be there. There is something higher that's there. So open yourself to this higher something. And so freedom from freedom is our greatest freedom because we're freeing ourselves from the bondages of following every whim, of shiny object syndrome. And instead we're grounding ourselves. How do you do that? Things like meditation, relaxation, writing in the diary. The very most simple thing is every time you're doing something, stop for a minute and think, God or my higher power, what do you want me to do now? What should I do now? What is the best thing I could do now for everybody? What's the most useful thing I can do for anybody? And that might sound very silly to you, but just try it. Try next time somebody irritates you. Try next time you feel afraid. We tend to feel stressed. We tend to feel afraid. We tend to feel aggressive. And we also have desires, of course. So next time you're feeling these things, just ask that higher self, what should I do now? Surrender your personal freedom and open yourself to that higher freedom of that higher version of you. The you that's bigger than the little you here. And when we do that, we align ourselves to that higher self and we start becoming a bigger version of ourselves, and we're living kind of a transpersonal life, that we're living a life that is truly free. So the greatest freedom is freedom from freedom, but it's not that we don't have freedom, become slaves. No. It's that we surrender ourselves to the higher power, higher self, higher version of ourselves. Go give it a try and see what you think and let me know how you get on. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll talk to you next time.